Hey bros, welcome back to another video. Currently, I'm in the Pearl Island of Vietnam on a holiday, and in this video, we're going to talk about budget 2024 and what are some of the biggest opportunities as investors, as job hunters, and much more. Things that you need to take action in order to get more benefit from this budget 2024. Okay, so let's begin. The first data I'm going to talk about is Singapore's growth data. And in summary, it's bad. And I'm going to tell you why I think it's bad. So in 2022, our individual wages grew faster than inflation. So even though inflation was really high, our incomes grew a lot. I'm going to show you the data right here. It's amazing. But in 2023, even though the headline says that inflation kind of fell, our incomes actually dropped a lot further. So this means real incomes drop, we are actually poorer in 2023. But more importantly, this tells us the outlook for what's going to happen in 2024. So when we look at growth, I think one key metric we look at is two things. First is GDP, and more importantly, GDP per capita. Oh, there's a lot of sandflies. That's not good. Because GDP can be manipulated by more population coming into Singapore, which doesn't really affect us working here because we are not seeing real income growth. But GDP per capita, that's what matters more. So as you can see, GDP per capita declined quite sharply in 2023, and over the next decade, right, the government forecasts that we can expect a growth of 2 to 3% annually over the next decade. But what's more telling is that for this year, 2024, the forecast was 1 to 3% lower than the expected average. So this means that the minister is saying, hey, outlook is tough. He also did mention that inflationary data is expected to ease, but no data was given, and that we must pursue fast growth, 1.3 to 5%, because if we don't pursue very aggressive growth, this means that lower wage workers will suffer. But this also means that in order to pursue faster growth, the strategy that they're going to employ is to increase productivity, which means a lot of grants is going to be put into training and development. So hey, if you're in mid-career now or at the early start of a career, it's really advantageous to take advantage of all this grant and pursue more education. I'm going to talk about them in a little bit so you'll see how much incentives there are in order to pursue higher education. And now to the second point, which is where the government is going to give huge funding support, because these sectors, or if you're a business owner, you can see that these businesses will tend to do better because of government subsidies and support. It was mentioned that electronics segment is expected to grow, and more importantly, there's huge funding support for these industries: the semiconductor industry, the financial industry, AI, and sustainability. And he went on to mention a lot of different segments and the long-term plan for increasing or improving sustainability investment in Singapore. There is also going to be huge infrastructure investment, namely investing in faster network within Singapore. So we're going to benefit from getting more reliable and faster 5G data as consumers, hopefully. But more importantly, I wonder if this means that there are more government contracts for our telco companies in Singapore. So then this could mean that we will see an improvement in bottom lines if there's going to be huge investment in this faster network support in order to have better tech innovation. So I'm guessing this is going to support a smarter nation, hopefully, better support for smart cars in Singapore, right? Yeah, so let's move over to the next point, which is property measures. There are new property measures that have been released, but I think what's really important to note is that based on the property data, the property market has slowed. That's based on what I've seen on the ground, and also based on the property resale index. You can see it has slowed down. It's still high, it's still moving upwards, but it has slowed down. So generally, this budget announcement is good. What the government has done is to reduce taxes on property investors. They did it by reducing or by increasing the AV brackets. So this means that assuming your property is at the same bracket, you now could be paying or will be paying less taxes. Additionally, the government have recognized that developers are struggling to clear their load, so they are providing more support for struggling housing developers by reducing the ABSD clawback, which is essentially a stamp duty or tax if they do not clear the inventory in time. So this means more time or less taxes for property developers, and this means that they want to encourage more supply in the housing market. And the fourth item I'm going to talk about is more government grants to help Singaporeans, and this one is really big. I'm going to start with action items so that, it's one thing to mention a whole list of cash that you would get without having to apply anything, But what's more important is to know that, hey, here are things that you can actually do in order to maximize, your incomes or savings from budget 2024. So first up is that from 2025, which is not this year, next year, the annual income threshold for tax relief will increase from 4,000 to 8,000. So this is if you top up for your spouse, siblings, that will increase. Another opportunity is that the government is giving PPHS 1-year voucher. Does this mean free 1 year subsidized rental or free rental? It's not quite clear. I'm going to dig into that in a little bit. So this is meant for couples who are waiting for their BTOs to be completed. You can apply for what we call PPHS scheme to get an opportunity to stay in a subsidized flat, and the flats are super cheap. I tried to apply for it when I was waiting for my place, didn't manage to succeed. And what's more important is, honestly, my 2 cents is that can apply but very hard to get one. If you get, really hang up, because there's like more than 20 applicants per unit available. The government has mentioned that they're going to increase the supply from 800 to 2,000 and then to 4,000 next year. But honestly, I think it's going to be really hard to get these subsidized flats. So just set your expectations right. Additionally, if you are 40 years old and above, if you apply for a full-time diploma, this is big. They're going to give you 50% of your previous income for up to 24 months. Literally 2 years, 50% income capped at $3,000. So that's a lot of free money paid for you to pursue another diploma. And if you're an IT graduate, here's good news for you. If you take a diploma now, you are actually eligible for a lot of CPF top-ups and grants. I'm not sure if there's any application process, so do check it out carefully. But I think the sum is $15,000 of free money. So apart from those items that you need to take action on, most of it is static, meaning to say that if you qualify, you would automatically be given this money. If you don't qualify, you won't. So here are the list of different grants. It's $600 CDC voucher, $4,000 Skills Future top-up if you're 40 years old. There's also a scheme to help provide income if you're being fired. I think this one you need to apply. I'm not very sure if it's automatically given. There's $400 cash for Singaporeans. There is USave rebates up to $950, SNCC rebates for 4 months, and there's $200 Life SG vouchers if you are an NS man. So point number 5 is that businesses are squeezed very tightly to raise wages to hit, the government's GDP target or growth targets. So if you're a business owner, it's going to be tougher hiring talents this year. So what happened is that the local qualifying salary is raised to 1,600 from 1,400. So if you're trying to get grants, you have to pay your employees more in order to qualify for grants. There is also this ComLink Plus package. I'm going to tell the details over here. There's going to be an increase in CPF contribution from age 55 to 65 to 1.5%, which means more. Fortunately, there's going to be a 1-year transition before this is in effect, and there's going to be GST rebates for companies, $2,000 in cash payouts to employers if you employ at least one Singaporean. I'm not sure if you have to apply for it or it's given back. At the end of the year when you file taxes, they just give it back to you. Also, they are giving a lot more support to SMEs, not by giving you free cash, but by making loans easier to take for up to $500,000. Again, Skills Future credit, progressive wage workers, funding has been increased from 30% to 50% to $3,000 co-funding cap if you want to try to help your staff earn more money. But all these are extremely tedious to take the time to apply if you're a small company. So if you're an SME, you need to taper expectations and think that, hey, it's probably going to be really hard for you to apply for all these grants, number one. Or number two, you would have to approach like grants application companies, or those SME centers. You can approach them and ask them for advice on how do you apply and maximize your grants claim, because it's getting very tedious. A lot of paperwork to file in order to first prove that you have done all these things that you need to do in order to achieve these grants. And number two, prove that you're not a fraud. You're not trying to create a company to scam, the government money, because there has been a lot of grant scam in the past few years. So that's why now it's getting harder and harder to apply. And moving on to the next point number 6, which is CPF changes. I made a full video talking about CPF changes. I think it's going to be here or here. Do check that out. Basically, ERS is raised from 3 times to 4 times. So in 2025, that sum will be $426,000, and that translates to $3,300 in monthly payouts when you're eligible, when you've reached the age to receive payouts, if I recall correctly. And here's the major part. SA is to be closed. Everything will be transferred to RA. So there's a lot of chatter over this. The qualifying salary has been raised from $1,800 to $2,300. And the rest of the changes, I'm going to put it up over here so you can read it. So basically, a lot more support for the elderly and lower wage workers. Point number 7. And this one's pretty interesting. It's close to home as an ex-professional athlete. And that is, there is more support for our arts and sports scene. So for Arts SG, there's going to be $100 million investment over the next 4 years. If you're an artist, congratulations, you're going to see a lot more activities happening in the art scene. In terms of sports, they announced sports rejuvenation. I was hoping that there'll be more sports facilities because there's a huge shortage, but it's rejuvenation. So according to the master plan, places that they're going to rejuvenate: new and rejuvenated Toa Payoh, Punggol and Clementi area. And they want to anchor more major competitions in Singapore, because if not, our white elephant is, sitting there not really doing much. There's going to be $20 million top up to 1-for-1 team. So basically now, if you want to support local athletes, if you donate to our national teams, it's going to be a 1-for-1 top up by the government, which is nice. That hopefully encourages more people to donate. And it's expanded to cover more emerging sports like chukball, pickleball, and powerlifting as well, which is great. So hopefully this gives you an idea of what else you can, donate to help out, give back to the community, and maximize your tax deductions. But more importantly, what do you think of this analysis? There's a lot of things to cover, and they want to make it like super dry by listing out point by point all the single rebates. So hopefully I covered enough that you know what are opportunities that you can take advantage of. If you want to apply for jobs, where are the emerging sectors that government is going to invest a lot in? Opportunities as investors, you want to profit from companies that were set to receive a lot of subsidies. Check out some of my other videos on CPF changes, my analysis on them, and what are some of the most interesting alternatives that I found over here. Or check out what YouTube recommends you over here, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, and I hope this video wasn't too dry. I'll see you next time. Stay safe.